Somerset and Dorset Railway was a result of the fusion of two separate railway companies, the Somerset Central Railway and the Dorset Central Railway. The rest, as they say, is history.
45 years ago, a major chapter in the lives of many West Country folk came to an end. The Somerset and Dorset Joint Railway was shut for good. In 1966, 48 stations closed, and large settlements, including Radstock, Shepton Mallet and Wincanton, were left isolated from the rail network. We went back to a section of the Somerset and Dorset, commonly known to its admirers as the S&D, to find out how the closure affected people's lives. Gerald Timbrell lives in an old crossing keeper's cottage, 5 miles south of Shepton Mallet.
Well, obviously, when the railway was closed, the people that lived in this cottage and also in the Bruton Road crossing, they would have lost their jobs. They lost their house because it was also, when the railway was all sold off, so they had to find alternative occupation and housing, etc.
Lamiat Crossing Cottage has been extended over the years, but along with the alignment of the old track, it survives. It was in places like these, isolated rural outposts, where the lives of people were changed forever by the loss of the S&D.
There were an awful lot of people that worked on the railway, both in coal, because that was a goods yard and one thing and another, and up at Evercreech, a lot of jobs lost from Evercreech.
The Somerset and Dorset's closure was a major disaster, really, for all of the communities that it served, right the way down from Bath to down to Poole and Bournemouth.
The old S&D played host to a myriad of traffic. As well as passengers, it carried large amounts of coal, milk, cattle, and even contributed a large amount to the war effort.
They used to have the milk trains and everything like that. Used to haul the milk away, I suppose, at times, or bring the milk there to Evercreech, I don't know. But there would have been a lot of other jobs involved with it as well. And of course, we don't have any public transport out here. That's affected a lot of people, I would have thought, getting from A to B.
There was a daily train which was called the Milky that used to take the milk tank wagons full up to Templecombe. They were attached to the West of England to London express milk train, and so the S&D was responsible for providing so much of the milk for the capital.
Many believe the closure of the S&D was decided long before any real decline in traffic.
They diverted the traffic away from the S&D line, and hence that put them into financial difficulties, etc. And when the government closed it all down, I suppose it was a bit of a blessing in disguise to a certain extent.
Usage dwindled. Politicians almost unanimously believed that the way forward was by road. The beloved roads quickly became gridlocked, a prophecy made in 1963 by the great lover of railways, Sir John Betjeman.
Go away, you brute, you enemy of railways and comfortable travel. You know, I'm not just being nostalgic and sentimental and unpractical about railways. Railways are bound to be used again. They're not a thing of the past. And it's heartbreaking to see them left to rot, and to see the fine men who served them all their lives made uncertain about their own futures and about their jobs.
We continued our trip along the S&D with a visit to Roma Thick. Roma owned the railway hotel opposite the station in the Somerset village of Cole. She's been there for 67 years, and the closure of the railway saw her own business facing the axe.
They used to come down from Radstock to repair the rails and do any repair work in that. But of course gradually all that fell off, so we didn't get that trade. So trade just sort of, as they used to live there, drink.
Unlike many of the towns and villages, Cole was lucky in that a neighbouring station, Bruton, remains open today, although only a handful of trains actually stop.
We had to have a car and travel by car. I mean, we used to go to Bath quite a lot, and we used to go up to Evercreech. If we wanted to go and get up there by 11 o'clock in the morning, which we used to catch the slow train from here, 9:30, and you got in Bath at about 11.
People hoped that it wouldn't close, but sadly it did in March 1966, and it very adversely affected all the communities. It left people who lived really way out in the country with no means of getting anywhere.
On close inspection, it's surprising how much of the closed line survives. At the former hub of the line, Evercreech Junction, most of the old station buildings are intact, as are the crossing gates, the delightfully named Elbow Corner. In fact, from some angles, it's hard to think that a railway no longer runs through this part of Somerset. Sadly, it's gone for good, and the motor car forms the staple form of transport through the area, with people's way of life altered forever. This once necessary artery through a stunning area of the southwest will continue to blur back into the countryside.
The credit crunch is affecting businesses throughout the West Country. We went to see what the Royal Standard, on the outskirts of Weymouth, is doing to tackle the recession.
I've been in the pub trade for a number of years now. Worked for different people in different village pubs around Dorset, and I find myself here in the Royal Standard in Otway.
Phil Anderson has been the landlord of the Royal Standard for the last year. His aim since then has been to turn it into a friendly, local hostelry.
The Royal Standard is totally different to any pubs I've run before, because it is actually a microbrewery pub, so we actually brew our own beer, and we're a traditional real ale free house in the nice village, beautiful village of Otway.
So how does Phil manage in this financially unhappy time?
Running a pub in the middle of a recession is very, very difficult indeed. You've got to think of new, innovative ways to actually do different things to make your pub unique. I think we've done that by having a microbrewery on site. We're the only pub for 30 odd miles with a microbrewery.